The grand hall of the Interstellar Peace Council gleamed with lights reflecting off polished metal walls, holographic banners of countless alien empires floating in the air like ethereal constellations. Earth's delegation had never attended an event so lavish. It was supposed to be a celebration, a chance for the galaxy to forget the horrors of war. Yet Captain Jace Calloway felt the familiar stirrings of unease in his chest. The war was over, yes, but nothing in the galaxy ever stayed quiet for long. Jace, dressed in his formal Earth uniform, moved through the crowd with calm confidence. His presence alone drew attention. He had the kind of reputation that preceded him across star systems, Earth's greatest war hero, the man who had led desperate fleets against impossible odds and won. Even now, years after the last battle, whispers of his daring exploits followed him like a shadow. Alien dignitaries watched with polite curiosity as he passed, some with admiration, some with subtle unease. Humans were unpredictable, and Jace was the most unpredictable of them all. The center of the hall held a towering stage where speakers from every corner of the galaxy would give speeches. Holographic translators buzzed softly in his ear as dignitaries spoke, their languages melting into something comprehensible. Jace had little interest in formalities. He had survived ambushes in asteroid belts and boarding actions on alien warships. Polite speeches were not what concerned him. He scanned the crowd instead, instinctively searching for the one person who had been the most talked about among the diplomatic circles, the Aurelian ambassador, Lyra Vera. Lyra was impossible to miss. Standing on the upper balcony, she wore a flowing garment of iridescent fabric that shimmered like liquid light. Her eyes were an unnatural gold. Glowing softly in the hall's illumination, she watched the room with detached amusement, scanning each visitor like a predator assessing her prey. Yet her gaze rested on Jace longer than anyone else, and a small, playful smile tugged at her lips. It was that smile that had everyone whispering. Lyra Vera was renowned not just for her diplomatic skill, but for her mischievous nature. Many said she could twist entire negotiations with a single word or glance. If Jace felt uneasy about alien customs, he tried to push it aside. He had faced real threats before, and he could face this one too. But even he felt a prickle of tension when she started moving down the balcony stairs toward the main floor. The crowd seemed to part instinctively, as if the galaxy itself gave way for her. Jace had encountered many alien dignitaries, but something about Lyra's presence was different. There was confidence, yes, but also a lightness, a sense of unpredictability that mirrored his own nature. As she approached, she leaned slightly toward him, her voice smooth and teasing. "Captain Calloway," she said, her tone carrying a musical cadence. "I hear you are quite the hero. I wonder if your bravery extends beyond battlefields." Jace smirked, recognizing the familiar alien tactic of testing humans for character. "Depends on the battlefield," he replied, his voice calm, steady, betraying none of his anticipation. "Why don't you find out?" Lyra laughed softly, a sound that made the ears of everyone nearby turn involuntarily. Then, to the astonishment of everyone in the hall, she said, "Marry me, human!" The words echoed through the hall, bouncing off polished surfaces. A ripple of shocked murmurs spread across the room. Some aliens froze, their expressions unreadable, while others exchanged quick, urgent messages on their wrist communicators. Jace blinked. He had heard the phrase correctly. He laughed, brushing it off as a joke. "I'm afraid I'm already married to Earth's duty," he said, a grin tugging at his lips. Lyra tilted her head, her smile widening. "Oh, I think we could renegotiate your loyalties." She winked, as if the entire galaxy were playing along with her joke. But in the Aurelian culture, such a declaration was not just jest. It was legally binding, at least in certain contexts. She had spoken words that could trigger centuries-old customs, and nobody seemed to realize it yet. Jace, ever cautious, noticed the subtle shift in the hall's energy. Alien aides whispered urgently, translators flared with urgent tones, and some dignitaries subtly moved closer to the exits. The joke had consequences, and he could feel it. "You're not serious," he said, though the corner of his mouth betrayed a hint of doubt. Lyra's eyes sparkled. "Perhaps I am," she said softly. "Perhaps it's a test." "I do enjoy seeing how humans react under pressure." The whispers grew louder. Humans rarely engaged with Aurelian customs directly, and the idea of a casual marriage declaration had thrown the diplomats into chaos. The Earth delegation panicked, but Jace remained composed. He had survived ambushes, assassination attempts, and betrayal on scales that would have crushed lesser men. He could handle this. He inclined his head respectfully. "If this is your custom, Ambassador, I would need to understand it fully before agreeing." Lyra's smile softened. Her amusement now mingled with curiosity. She had expected resistance, hesitation, perhaps even arrogance, but there was none. Jace was steady, thoughtful, and clearly human. That combination was dangerous, because humans were notoriously unpredictable. "You will learn soon enough," she said, glancing at her aides. "For now, let's see how the great human hero navigates a social battlefield. You will find that it is not unlike war, only with higher stakes and fewer guarantees of survival." The rest of the evening passed in a blur of formalities. Jace found himself seated beside Lyra at the gala dinner, forced into conversations that could influence interstellar policy. He spoke little, listening more, observing patterns in alien behavior that reminded him of battlefield strategy. Small gestures, subtle movements, even the way the Aurelians served their meals revealed clues about intent and hierarchy. Throughout it all, Lyra maintained her teasing demeanor, dropping occasional comments that drew laughter from the room and tension from Jace. Every word she spoke seemed calculated to test him, to measure his reactions, and yet he remained calm, smiling politely, his mind racing through possible outcomes. By the time the gala ended, the consequences of the joke had become clear. Earth's politicians, though grateful for Jace's calm demeanor, were deeply concerned. If Jace accepted, or even appeared to accept, the marriage, it could force Earth into a political alliance with the Aurelian Empire, one that carried obligations far beyond any human diplomat's experience. Jace knew this was more than a social trap. This was a test of humanity itself. He glanced at Lyra as she prepared to leave. Her golden eyes held no malice, only curiosity. She wanted to see how humans would react under pressure, how they would navigate customs they barely understood. "You are difficult to predict, human," she said softly. "Perhaps that is why you survived the war." Jace allowed himself a small smile. "And perhaps that is why humans will never be conquered," he replied. The next morning, the implications became undeniable. Diplomatic channels buzzed with urgent messages. Legal experts consulted ancient Aurelian law, and Earth's leaders debated feverishly about the marriage incident. Jace, for his part, remained calm, focused on what mattered most, understanding the rules of this strange game and ensuring humanity came out unscathed. He spent the day in meetings, studying Aurelian culture, and consulting his own experiences in command. If war had taught him anything, it was that being predictable was dangerous. The galaxy had always underestimated humans, and they had always paid for that mistake. Now, in a game of customs and politics, the stakes were no less deadly, only subtler. That evening, he received a message from Lyra herself, delivered directly to his secure communicator. It read simply, "Prepare yourself, Captain. Tomorrow, the game truly begins." Jace leaned back in his chair, letting the words sink in. This was no longer a joke. This was a challenge. And Jace Calloway, human, warrior, tactician, and survivor, had never backed down from a challenge in his life. He allowed himself a rare smile. Let the galaxy watch, he thought. They will learn, as they always do, that humans are impossible to predict. And somewhere deep in his mind, a small spark of excitement ignited. Not for the gala, not for the politics, but for the first time in years, he felt the thrill of a new kind of battlefield. One where cunning, courage, and humanity itself would be the weapons. Jace didn't know what the future held, but he did know this. Whatever challenges Lyra and her empire threw at him, he would meet them head on. Humans might be weaker than many alien races, slower, less advanced, and utterly underestimated, but their unpredictability, their audacity, their stubborn refusal to give up, that was a force no empire could ever ignore. As he prepared for the coming days, Jace allowed himself one thought. This was going to be far more interesting than any war he had ever fought. And, for once, he didn't mind that it had all started with a joke. The morning sun gleamed off the Aurelian flagship as it hovered silently above Earth's orbit. From the observation deck, Jace Calloway watched the planet below, its blue oceans and green continents seeming almost fragile from this height. Despite the calm view, he felt tension coiling inside him like a spring. Lyra Veyra's joke marriage declaration had not only caused a diplomatic uproar, but also placed him directly in the Aurelian political sphere, a space he had never trained for. Aides moved silently around him, setting up communication arrays and adjusting displays with precise movements. Jace studied them, noting their efficiency and the subtle hierarchy of gestures that indicated rank. Every small detail mattered when navigating alien culture, and he had learned long ago that the smallest misstep could lead to disaster. Lyra appeared at the doorway, her golden eyes glowing softly in the ambient light. She wore a formal Aurelian uniform, elegant and shimmering, signaling authority as well as grace. When she looked at Jace, her smile held a mix of amusement and challenge, the kind that tested his wit rather than his strength. "Good morning, Captain," she said. Her voice was smooth, yet carried a playful sharpness. "I trust your night was restful, considering the unexpected attention you received at the gala." Jace straightened. "Restful enough. I spent it thinking about how to survive your culture without causing a war." He let the words carry a hint of humor, as he had learned long ago that humor could disarm tension even in the most dangerous situations. Lyra laughed softly, walking closer. "You are clever for a human," she said. "That may serve you well here, but cleverness alone will not be enough. You must understand us, our customs, and what you agreed to yesterday, even if you did not intend to agree." Jace raised an eyebrow, unbothered. I've survived ambushes in asteroid belts, led fleets against overwhelming forces, and turned lost battles into victories. I think I can handle a conversation." Bold words, bold humans. She led him down narrow corridors lined with smooth, reflective panels, each displaying star maps and fleet movements. Jace noted the precision in every detail. The way crew members moved, the way the ship seemed almost alive in its coordination. He understood efficiency, but this was more than that. The Aurelians had mastered subtlety in both technology and culture. Finally, they reached a room that looked like a combination of a council chamber and a training hall. Holoscreens lined the walls, projecting simulations of various planetary terrains, fleet movements, and political scenarios. Lyra gestured for him to stand in the center. "This," she said, "is where we prepare diplomats and warriors alike for negotiation and conflict. You will spend the day learning what it means to be bare, engaged with an empire." Jace frowned slightly. "You mean married? You're giving me a crash course in etiquette for a marriage that was, at least according to my understanding, a joke." Lyra's laughter filled the room, soft and melodic, but there was a sharp edge beneath it. In Aurelian culture, a spoken commitment is binding unless officially annulled. Consider this your orientation, Captain. By the end of today, you may better understand the stakes. You may even enjoy it. Jace's mind raced. He had faced impossible odds in combat, but diplomacy, especially of this scale, was unfamiliar territory. Yet he also knew something important. Humans were never predictable. What they lacked in technical superiority, they made up for with creativity, intuition, and courage. He intended to use every ounce of that. The first exercise was simple in concept, but deadly in implication. A simulation projected a colony under siege by a hostile faction, and Jace was required to negotiate a truce between the colony's leaders and Orielan representatives while minimizing casualties. The simulation was flawless. Every action, every word, had consequences. A wrong choice could destroy the colony entirely in the virtual scenario. Jace studied the map carefully, noting patterns and timing. He spoke, not with arrogance, but with clarity and confidence. We need to prioritize civilians first. If both sides lose trust, any truce will collapse. Start with a ceasefire in the populated zones, then work outward. Always give the other side options, but options that lead them to the result we need. Lyra watched silently, her golden eyes narrowing slightly as she processed his words. The simulation adapted, creating new challenges, but Jace remained focused. Every response from the virtual representatives tested his ability to anticipate behavior, read intentions, and stay calm under pressure. After hours of exercises, Lyra finally spoke. "You are remarkably capable," she said, almost grudgingly. I expected a human to fumble at least once, to be caught off guard by the subtleties of negotiation. Yet here you stand, adapting as if this were another battlefield. Humans survive by adapting. Always have, always will. We may not be the fastest or the strongest, but we can always find a way. Lyra's amusement softened into something like admiration. That may be why your species survived wars that should have ended them. Perhaps it is time I stopped underestimating humans. The day continued with exercises in strategy, etiquette, and even combat simulations. Lyra challenged him to zero-gravity drills, diplomatic debates, and cultural puzzles designed to test intuition. Each task seemed simple at first but had hidden layers of complexity. Yet with every challenge, Jace proved resilient, blending instinct with careful analysis. By the evening, both were exhausted, but a silent respect had grown between them. Lyra, who had entered the day intending to test and amuse herself, now found herself genuinely curious about this human who had survived what no one thought possible. Jace, in turn, began to appreciate the subtleties of Aurelian culture, the elegance of their logic, the precision of their rituals, and the thrill of navigating them successfully. Over a shared meal, Lyra spoke more candidly. "Captain, I must admit this was meant as a simple test, a way to see if a human could endure our ways. But you have surprised me. You are not only clever, but steady, adaptable, and not easily intimidated. That is rare." Jace leaned back, a faint smile on his face. "I've faced worse than formalities. But I do enjoy learning. The galaxy is full of surprises, and humans are not afraid to meet them head-on." For the first time, Lyra allowed herself a genuine smile, free of mischief. "Perhaps this joke of a marriage will teach me something as well," she said softly. "Humans are far more than I imagined. I suspect I may even enjoy your company." Jace chuckled, sensing the layers behind her words. "I'm sure the feeling could be mutual," he replied, careful to maintain professionalism while acknowledging the tension between them. He knew the stakes. Every interaction here was a potential spark that could ignite political consequences. Yet he also understood something fundamental. Trust and understanding were as vital as weapons in war, perhaps even more so in diplomacy. As the night deepened, they stood together on the observation deck, looking out at the stars. The vast expanse of space seemed quiet, almost serene, a stark contrast to the political and personal battles of the day. "You know," Lyra said thoughtfully. "I underestimated humans. I expected hesitation, fear, perhaps even arrogance. Instead, I see audacity, and it is fascinating. Jace smiled faintly. Humans survive because we refuse to give up. That audacity you call fascinating, it has kept my species alive through impossible odds. She nodded slowly, eyes reflecting starlight. And yet, audacity alone is not enough. It must be paired with intelligence and adaptability. You possess both. That is what makes you formidable. Jace allowed the words to settle. He had heard praise before, but never from someone like Lyra. She represented an entire empire, and here she was, acknowledging not just his abilities, but humanity itself. It was a small victory, but one that mattered immensely. Later, alone in his quarters, Jace reflected on the day. The joke marriage had transformed into something far more complex. Dave, he was no longer just a guest or a participant in a diplomatic exercise. He was a symbol of humanity's resilience and ingenuity. Every step he took, every choice he made, carried the weight of a species that had survived impossible wars and emerged stronger. He knew the days ahead would be challenging. There would be negotiations, tests, and likely threats that he could not yet foresee. Yet he also knew one unshakable truth. Humans thrived where others failed. They adapted, they endured, and when underestimated, they struck with precision and brilliance. Jace allowed himself a rare moment of pride. He was not merely a soldier or a hero. He was a representative of humanity itself, capable of proving to the galaxy that humans were not to be taken lightly. The joke of a marriage had become a stage on which humanity's qualities, its cleverness, courage, and indomitable spirit would shine. And somewhere deep inside, he admitted to himself that he was looking forward to every challenge the future held. Not because he craved accolades, but because this was another battlefield. Different from those he had known, yes, but a battlefield nonetheless. And Jace Calloway had never failed to meet a battlefield head-on. Tomorrow, the true tests would begin. Negotiations, cultural trials, and perhaps unexpected dangers awaited. Yet Jace knew one thing with absolute certainty. Whatever the Aurelians, the galaxy, or even Lyra herself threw at him, he would meet it as he always had, with audacity, intelligence, and the stubborn refusal to back down. Humans were underestimated. They always had been. And as he looked out at the stars, he allowed himself a small, confident smile. Let them underestimate humanity. They would soon learn, as they always did, that humans were impossible to predict. And sometimes, that was all the advantage they needed. The calm of space was deceptive. From the observation deck of the Aurelian flagship, Jace Calloway could see the vast emptiness of the stars, silent and beautiful, yet hiding dangers that no human or alien had ever fully comprehended. He had expected diplomacy, cultural tests, and playful challenges from Lyra Vera, but the day had brought an urgent alert. The Zarcon Collective, a ruthless alien faction thought to have been contained, had launched a surprise attack on Earth's outer colonies. Jace's chest tightened. He had faced impossible odds before, but this was different. It was one thing to fight on the battlefield he knew. It was another to protect civilians and colonies that were unprepared for war. The simulation exercises from the previous day had prepared him for strategy and negotiation, but nothing could replace instinct and quick thinking when a real threat arrived. Lyra appeared beside him, her expression serious, though her eyes retained a glimmer of intrigue. "Captain Calloway, the threat is immediate. You will need to coordinate with both Earth's defense forces and Aurelian fleets. The Zarcon are relentless, and this is not a skirmish. They intend to annihilate the colonies." Jace nodded, already shifting into the familiar mode of command. Years of fighting in impossible wars had trained him to move quickly, assess risk, and make decisions under pressure. "Show me the maps and fleet positions," he said. "I need to know every variable before I can make a move." The room buzzed with activity as aides projected star maps, colony layouts, and fleet movements onto the central hollow table. Jace studied them carefully, tracing potential approaches and predicting enemy movements. The Zarcon Collective had advanced technology, faster ships, and experienced war commanders, yet they underestimated humans. A mistake they would soon regret. Lyra watched silently as Jace issued orders with calm authority. He directed Earth's fleets to form defensive grids around key colonies while simultaneously coordinating Aurelian support in sectors where humans were weaker. His mind raced, considering every angle, every contingency. "You are astonishing," Lyra murmured, more to herself than to anyone else. "I have studied countless species, yet humans surprise me. Your strategy is audacious." Jace allowed himself a brief smirk. "Audacity is survival," he replied, "and humans always find a way." Hours passed in tense preparation. The Zarcon strike fleet approached the outer colonies, moving with precision and deadly intent. As the first ships emerged from hyperspace, Jace remained focused, issuing commands that combined brute force, clever maneuvering, and unexpected tactics designed to exploit the enemy's assumptions. The first engagement began near the asteroid belt of Sector 9. Zarcon warships opened fire on a civilian mining colony. Earth's defenses were strong, but would not hold against the concentrated assault of the Zarcon fleet. Jace acted quickly. He ordered smaller human ships to create false targets, drawing the enemy into narrow corridors of asteroids. The Zarcon, confident in their superior technology, fell into the trap. Lyra watched in astonishment as the humans executed complex maneuvers, dodging plasma fire, and outflanking the enemy in ways that the Aurelian commanders had not anticipated. "Incredible," she whispered. Humans are not only resilient, they are unpredictable in the best way possible. Jace's orders were precise, yet adaptable. He anticipated the enemy's counterattacks, moving fleets dynamically, and coordinating with Aurelian forces in real time. The humans' creativity and flexibility turned the tide of the battle. Despite their smaller numbers and inferior technology, they inflicted heavy losses on the Zarcon. Amid the chaos, Jace received a report. A Zarcon strike team had landed on a civilian colony. The civilians were unarmed and vulnerable. Without hesitation, he mobilized a rapid response unit, combining human marines and Aurelian special forces. Using terrain, deception, and careful timing, they rescued the colonists, outmaneuvered the enemy, and secured the colony with minimal casualties. Lyra approached him after the battle, her expression a mix of respect and wonder. "You did not just defend the colonies, you outsmarted the Zarcon. Humans are remarkable." Jace allowed himself a brief moment of pride but did not relax. It's not over yet. They will adapt. We must be ready for their next move. The next attack came at the edge of Earth's system, where a Zarcon dreadnought threatened a key supply hub. Jace studied the situation and realized that a direct confrontation would be disastrous. Instead, he devised an unorthodox plan. He instructed the human and Aurelian fleets to feign retreat, luring the dreadnought into a narrow asteroid canyon. The Zarcon commander, confident in their superiority, took the bait. As the dreadnought moved into the canyon, Jace ordered a concentrated assault from multiple angles, using smaller ships to destabilize its shields while human engineers hacked the enemy's systems remotely. The plan was risky, relying on precise timing and coordination, but it worked flawlessly. The dreadnought was disabled without significant losses to friendly forces. Lyra watched in silent awe. "You turn even impossible odds into victory," she said softly. "I see why Earth calls you its greatest hero. You embody everything humans are known for: cunning, courage, and an indomitable spirit." Jace nodded, his focus still on the tactical maps. "We adapt, we survive. And when we are underestimated, we strike where they least expect it. That is humanity." By the time the Zarcon fleet retreated, Earth's colonies were secure, and the casualties minimal. Yet the victory was not without cost. Human and Aurelian crews had worked together under extreme pressure, and every person involved had been tested to their limits. Jace recognized that his role had shifted. He was no longer just a soldier or a hero. He was a symbol of humanity's resilience, a reminder to the galaxy that humans could not be underestimated. Later, in the quiet of the flagship's observation deck, Lyra and Jace stood side by side, looking out at the stars. The aftermath of the battles left a sense of fragile peace in the air, but both understood that vigilance was never ending in a galaxy so vast and dangerous. "You are extraordinary, Captain," Lyra said, her voice soft. "I have seen countless species, countless leaders, yet humans continue to astonish me. You are a rare combination of courage and intellect, instinct and strategy." Jace allowed himself a faint smile. "We survive because we refuse to give up. Every time someone doubts us, every time the odds are impossible, we find a way. That is the human way." Lyra considered his words, her expression thoughtful. "And yet, courage alone is not enough. You have shown me that humans possess something more: ingenuity, adaptability, unpredictability. These traits, combined with audacity, make your species formidable beyond expectation." Jace chuckled softly, the tension of the day easing slightly. "That unpredictability keeps the galaxy on its toes. And sometimes, that's exactly what we need to survive." They stood in silence for a moment, the weight of their shared experiences settling between them. The battles had forged a connection, not of romance, but of respect, trust, and understanding. Lyra, who had once treated the idea of marriage as a playful joke, now saw Jace as more than a human hero. He was a force of nature, a symbol of everything her empire had underestimated about humanity. The following days brought formal negotiations with the Aurelian Council, where Jace's strategies and insights continued to impress. He demonstrated that humans were not just warriors, but thinkers, capable of seeing patterns and possibilities that even the most advanced alien civilizations could overlook. Each discussion, each tactical choice, reinforced a single truth: humans were underestimated, at their own peril. Yet the story was far from over. The Zarcon threat lingered at the edge of known space, a reminder that vigilance was never ending. Lyra remained by his side, her respect for him growing with each decision he made, her amusement tempered by genuine admiration. The joke marriage had transformed into a complicated partnership, one that carried both political and personal significance. In private moments, they discussed tactics, culture, and even philosophy. Jace shared stories of human resilience, of battles won against impossible odds, of moments where hope seemed lost but courage prevailed. Lyra, in turn, revealed the intricacies of Aurelian thought, the delicate balance of honor, strategy, and long-term planning that governed her people. Through it all, Jace remained focused on one principle: humans survive by adapting, by finding solutions where others see only obstacles, and by striking when they are least expected. He had proven it in battle, in diplomacy, and now in the eyes of an entire alien empire. As the flagship moved through orbit, preparing for further patrols and the ongoing protection of human colonies, Jace allowed himself a moment of reflection. The galaxy had tested him, challenged him, and forced him to grow in ways that went far beyond the battlefield. Yet he had proven that humans could not only survive, but excel, even when faced with beings far more advanced, numerous, or powerful. Humans were underestimated, always had been. And as Jace looked at Lyra, at the stars, and at the fleets ready for action, he knew one unshakable truth: the galaxy would continue to underestimate them, and humans would continue to prove them wrong. For Jace Calloway, the battles were not just about survival. They were about showing the universe what humans were capable of when driven by courage, ingenuity, and an unbreakable will. And in that knowledge, he found not only purpose, but anticipation for the challenges that lay ahead. Tomorrow would bring new tests, new strategies, and perhaps new threats. Yet Jace was ready, as always. Humans thrived on challenges. They adapted. They endured. And when underestimated, they struck with brilliance and daring that no one could anticipate. Lyra's presence beside him was a constant reminder that even the most unexpected alliances could be powerful. The joke that had started this journey had become something far more significant. A partnership built on mutual respect, trust, and the shared understanding that humans were a force to be reckoned with. And somewhere deep inside, Jace allowed himself a small, confident thought. The galaxy was about to learn, once again, that humans were impossible to predict. And that was exactly how they survived, and how they would continue to thrive. The galaxy was quiet for a brief moment, but Jace Calloway knew better than to trust such silence. From the observation deck of the Aurelian flagship, he watched Earth below, its continents bathed in sunlight, its oceans glittering like scattered jewels. The Zarcon threat had been pushed back for now, but their presence at the edge of known space remained a constant reminder that peace was fragile. Lyra Vera stood beside him, her golden eyes reflecting the blue of the planet below. She had been both an ally and a challenger, testing him from the first day they met. What began as a joke, the playful, off-handed marriage proposal, had become something far more complex. It was no longer just a symbol of Aurelian customs, but of humanity itself, audacious, clever, and impossible to predict. "Captain," Lyra said softly, her voice carrying a rare note of seriousness, "the Council has requested your presence. There are political matters to resolve. The joke of yesterday has reached its conclusion." Jace nodded, already preparing mentally. He had navigated war zones, ambushed fleets, and rescued countless civilians. But now he was entering the most delicate battlefield of all, diplomacy. A room full of Aurelian leaders waited, each weighing the consequences of his words, each trying to determine if humans could be trusted. The council chamber was vast, with floating platforms for the dignitaries and a central area for speakers. Jace stepped forward confidently, his posture calm and deliberate. He had learned that humans' greatest strength was not technology or sheer numbers, but ingenuity, courage, and audacity. If he displayed these qualities here, he could shape the outcome not just for himself, but for all of Earth. Lyra followed him closely, her presence both reassuring and intimidating. She had learned much about humans in the past days, but she knew that Jace's true skill was yet to be revealed. He was not just a soldier or a negotiator. He was the embodiment of humanity's resilience and unpredictability. The council began with formalities, their voices a chorus of precise language and subtle threats. Some questioned the legality of the marriage. Others debated whether Earth could be trusted as an ally. Jace listened, analyzing every word, noting every subtle gesture, every hesitation. Then, when the room seemed ready to descend into confusion, he spoke. "Members of the council," he began, his voice steady and confident. "I am Captain Jace Calloway of Earth. I do not come here to argue about customs or titles. I come here to demonstrate that humanity is capable of responsibility, ingenuity, and loyalty. We survived wars that should have destroyed us, outsmarted enemies that were stronger and faster than us, and protected lives that others deemed expendable. You have seen it firsthand." A murmur ran through the council. Jace's words were direct, unpretentious, and impossible to dismiss. He continued. The marriage proposal by Ambassador Lyra Vera was a surprise, yes, but it represents an opportunity, a chance for humans and Aurelians to work together, to combine our strengths, and to show the galaxy that cooperation between our species is possible. I accept the responsibility, not as a joke, but as a commitment to the future. The chamber fell silent. Even Lyra was impressed by his calm, precise reasoning. His words carried authority, but also humility. He did not claim superiority. He demonstrated capability. That distinction mattered. "Captain," an elder of the council said, her voice measured and commanding. "Humans are known for their audacity, but also for their unpredictability. How can we trust that your acceptance is genuine and not a calculated maneuver? Jace smiled faintly, the faintest spark of amusement in his eyes. Unpredictability can be a strength. It allows humans to find solutions where others see only obstacles. But I am not here to deceive. My actions during the recent Zarcon attacks have shown that humanity values life, ingenuity, and strategic thinking. We are not perfect, but we are capable. And when underestimated, we can be a formidable ally or opponent. Lyra's eyes met his, and she nodded slightly, a silent acknowledgement of his point. The council deliberated in hushed tones, consulting ancient laws and protocols, weighing risks and benefits. Finally, the elder spoke again. Very well, Captain Calloway, if you accept the responsibilities of this union, and if your actions continue to demonstrate humanity's commitment to cooperation, then the Council recognizes this agreement as legitimate. The joke, if it can be called that, shall be considered binding. A wave of relief passed through Jace, though he maintained a composed expression. He had expected negotiations to be difficult, but his clarity, confidence, and humanity had carried the day. He bowed slightly. Thank you. I will uphold this responsibility to the best of my ability. The council dispersed, and Jace was left alone with Lyra. She smiled, no longer teasing, but genuinely appreciative. You have done more than I expected, Captain. You have shown me that humans are more than clever. They are reliable, courageous, and capable of greatness beyond imagination. Jace allowed himself a small grin. We surprise even ourselves sometimes. That's how we survive. Lyra's laughter was soft, but warm. And yet there is still so much for you to learn about my people, Captain. But perhaps now we can do so together, not as adversaries nor as subjects of a joke, but as partners. The following weeks were a whirlwind of coordination, alliance building, and subtle diplomacy. Jace worked closely with Aurelian commanders, learning their tactics and sharing human strategies that often surprised even the most experienced officers. Together they strengthened Earth's defenses, developed plans for future threats, and demonstrated to the galaxy that humans were capable of far more than anyone had anticipated. Throughout this period, the relationship between Jace and Lyra evolved. What began as playful tension became a partnership built on mutual respect, trust, and shared experience. They debated strategies, exchanged cultural insights, and occasionally teased each other in ways that lightened the tension of their duties. Their connection was unusual, equal parts diplomacy, admiration, and subtle camaraderie. But it worked. Together, they were formidable. One evening, after a long day of strategic planning, Jace stood with Lyra on the observation deck. The stars stretched endlessly before them, silent witnesses to the galaxy's fragile peace. You know, Lyra said thoughtfully, I may have underestimated humans, and I may have misjudged this marriage. But I am learning that humanity is more than audacity and unpredictability. You possess something deeper, an unyielding spirit, a willingness to face impossible odds, and a cleverness that can turn despair into victory. Jace smiled faintly. We survive because we adapt. We endure because we refuse to quit, and when the odds seem impossible, we find a way. That's how humans work. That's how we always have. Lyra's golden eyes softened. And now, Captain, the galaxy sees it as well. Your actions have proven that humans are not to be underestimated. Not by us, not by the Zarcon, and not by any who think they can control or predict you. Jace looked out at the stars, letting the truth of her words settle. He had faced countless dangers, survived battles that others thought impossible, and now stood at the center of an interstellar alliance. Humanity had been tested and had risen, not through sheer power, but through courage, ingenuity, and resilience. The peaceful days that followed were filled with preparation for the future. Jace and Lyra continued to strengthen the alliance between Earth and the Aurelian Empire, while also fortifying defenses against any returning threats. Humans were now recognized not just as survivors, but as leaders, as a species whose audacity and adaptability could shape the course of galactic events. Then came the moment that would cement the unusual but profound bond between Jace and Lyra. During a ceremonial gathering celebrating the alliance, Lyra stepped forward, addressing the assembled dignitaries. "Captain Jace Calloway," she said, her voice clear and confident, "has demonstrated not only courage and intelligence, but a humanity that is remarkable in its resilience and ingenuity. It is my honor to declare our union recognized, not as a jest, but as a commitment to the future of both our species." A murmur of approval rippled through the crowd. Jace felt a mix of relief and quiet pride. This was more than a personal victory. It was a triumph for humanity. He had turned a joke into an opportunity, uncertainty into respect, and casual words into a symbol of enduring strength. Later, Lyra approached him privately. "It seems the galaxy has learned a lesson," she said softly. "Never underestimate humans, and never assume their cleverness is limited. You have shown me that, Captain." Jace allowed himself a small, confident smile. "We survive, we adapt, and we find a way."
That's humanity, and if that means proving ourselves to the galaxy, then so be it.
Lyra laughed, her amusement mingling with admiration. "And perhaps, Captain, you have proven something to yourself as well. That even in the face of chaos, humor, and impossible odds, humans can rise, and sometimes thrive, beyond what anyone expects." Jace looked at her, understanding the depth of her words. What had begun as a joke, a playful declaration of marriage, had transformed into a partnership, a demonstration of humanity's true potential, and a personal connection built on respect, trust, and shared triumphs. The galaxy was still vast, full of dangers and mysteries yet to be faced, but for the first time in a long while, Jace felt a sense of optimism. Humanity had survived, proven itself, and claimed a place among the stars not through dominance alone, but through ingenuity, courage, and audacity. And beside him, Lyra's presence was a constant reminder that even the most unexpected relationships could be powerful. The joke had become a bridge, a symbol that humans once underestimated could rise above expectations, forge alliances, and inspire respect across worlds. As the flagship moved in orbit above Earth, Jace allowed himself a rare, genuine smile. The galaxy would continue to test humanity, continue to doubt them, and continue to underestimate them. But humans had survived before, and they would survive again. They were clever, brave, and impossible to predict. And now, with allies like Lyra Vera by his side, the future seemed not only survivable, but full of possibility. For Jace Calloway, Earth's greatest war hero, the joke of a marriage had become a legend of human resilience, a story the galaxy would remember for generations, a story of courage, ingenuity, and the undeniable truth that humanity was not just a survivor, but a force to be reckoned with. And somewhere deep inside, he knew this was only the beginning.